Yeah.
I still waste a lot of time studying the meeting. Yeah, sure, that's great. Just get through that.
Good evening. It's 5 o'clock and I will call the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee meeting to order. And I have been advised that there are two important final hockey games tonight commencing at 7 o'clock, so we will endeavor to proceed through our business tonight expeditiously. First of all, I will call the Standing Committee to order. And I will provide the Indigenous acknowledgement. Today we acknowledge that this event is taking place on the traditional territory of the Indigenous people of Turtle Island, including the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Ojibwe peoples, and on lands connected with the Lake Simcoe-Nottawasaga Treaty of 1818. This is the home of a diverse range of Indigenous peoples whom we recognize as contemporary stewards of the land and vital contributors of our society. And can I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Hamlin, all in favor? And that is unanimous. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, if you have a situation arise during this meeting, please don't hesitate to bring it to the attention of the chair. Is there any business arising from the previous meeting? And there is none. So that brings us to deputations. We have two deputations tonight. The first is from Mark Palmer and Eric Palmer, Greenland Consulting Engineers, and they will be speaking to us about the FCM 2020 Sustainable Communities Award application. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Chair Doherty, thank you for having us. My son Eric. I'm here tonight to give you a final update on the FCM project that started about 2.5 years ago. We're in the final weeks of finishing up the report. And at the very end of the presentation, I want to give you some good news about an invitation that I'd like the council to consider, the committee to consider about an application to apply for an award for the project. So I'll just walk you through, just for remind a lot of people that have probably seen a lot of this. My speaking buddy, his worship, is here tonight. We've done this a few times together. When we started down this path, I anticipated one conference. We now have done 8 conferences, and I'm actually speaking at another function at the end of the month. So from that perspective, it's got great coverage, not only here, but also some of our work in Western Canada as well. It's being picked up as well there with the work that Greenland's up to. There is a website at the bottom. Eric is the project manager. He's helped maintain that, so a lot of information there for everybody. So how this all started, there was a 17-year-old student from Wasaga Beach, Daniel Corellia, came out of the Center for Business. That's Daniel in the picture. He's now studying electrical engineering at York University. And the Center for Business and Martin Ridlow, thank you for your support, brought Daniel to Greenland about how to innovate and be part of my consulting world. So I like this picture. My basement bedroom when I grew up was a set of free weights and a pinball machine. This is Daniel's basement. He has a lab in his basement, and this is how it all began with the technology, with this internet sump pump. So I live on Krista Court. I didn't get into this willingly without testing this on my own home. And this is happy to report after 3 years, the technology is still working quite well. There have been some upgrades over the course of the project, and I can speak to those later as well. So what happened, we were aware, and Councillor Kathy Jeffrey, thank you for your support from the beginning, of a opportunity through FCM to apply for a grant to pull this all together as a partnership. I think the power of Collingwood is really about the businesses here, the collaboration spirit with tech businesses and startups, and that's what this is a testament to. So at the time, there were some issues with some frozen sidewalks as a result of people draining sump pumps from their basements, freezing on the sidewalks, and then the next winter, another cold snap we had, a lot of homeowners figured out, this mostly new construction, where to put the sump water. We'll put it in the sanitary sewer, and then we had a spike at the wastewater plant. So that was a kind of a warning light that Martin picked up on early, and how to innovate and maybe bring some of these new technologies to help with this issue of basement flooding. We had great support from the University of Waterloo, Dr. Blair Feldmate from the very beginning, and if you just Google Dr. Feldmate CBC, you'll see Blair all over the news on this. Very leading group on technologies and practices. Okay, so to bring us all together, there were some metrics, I'll talk about that as well. Core partners, the Environment Network were involved doing public engagement. Huronia, again, I had this tested in the sump pump in my home, but just as a safeguard, being an engineer, I wanted to lower the risk as much as possible, so Huronia Alarms was actually on call with their alarm system in case there was ever any issues. There were none at all, and I should report that tonight as well. RainGrid is a home harvest rainwater cistern harvesting technology for rainwater. So putting all this together with SafeSump, we came up with a pretty innovative work plan. And smart homes now, as you know, with gaming and security and lighting, there are all these applications. But from a water perspective, the market hasn't really embraced these yet. There's now quite a movement dealing with pipes and leakages and from pipes, but now we're in the world of stormwater management. And now this project was leading edge. I've been practicing for 35 years. This has been leading edge, these tools that came out of Collingwood. All right, so when we got the word, it was get going. I want to recognize Switch Video was a partner as well, a very innovative video that was very helpful through the public campaign. Carrie and Martin were instrumental in getting on the airwaves to get the word out for first public meeting. And overwhelmingly, we had 150 people sign up in town in 3 weeks. Unfortunately, we only had 50 sump pumps and 10 RainGrid products. So we investigated all the sites, all these areas, and decided that these clusters, I call them, were really where we would focus our efforts with the technology that were being funded. These devices were being funded through FCM. Part of the project was not just the smart angle of this, these Internet of Things products, but also conventional low-impact development. So we had budget for 3 rain gardens. We tendered that out, and there was a local contract that was selected for that. Part of my in-kind at Greenland, we have a few offices in town now. One of our buildings has a permeable parking lot structure on the left, so that was part of our donation. We monitored that, and it had, you can see the rain cistern product at the back. And the other one is Trinity United Church. So we actually did that project for them a few years ago, and they're very gracious for us to install the technology and monitor that parking lot. Analytics were a big part of this. I don't want to get into the weeds on this, but very critical. One of the metrics through FCM was we had to reduce the 90th percentile by 50% of rainfall over a 24-hour period. So that's essentially every 30 millimeters of runoff, just over an inch, that would happen every 24 hours. I report tonight that yes, we did achieve that actually with RainGrid and some other technologies, but with these permeable parking lots, we went way above that. So that's a great news story for FCM, that these products can achieve that metric. All right, so just go back to that. So one of the, again, you can imagine all the data that we were collecting. We had a server dedicated to this, and we had to strip out all these events. Last year, it was fairly dry. The year before it was quite wet. So a lot of our results came from the previous year, but we had a few samples last year. But this is just a sample to show we collected data, we monitored the parking lots, we could figure out what was coming off, how much rainfall, and did it achieve that metric. Okay, so just to wrap up shortly, lots of data. What did we do with it all? Well, there were ongoing programs by the town for flow monitoring for sanitary and storm sewer systems. So we actually used that in some cases. The engineering department was very instrumental to say, is there information that you could share with us that could help us with some hot spots they were looking at? The answer was yes. The analytics from this, we looked at the cumulative effects aside of this. We, scaling these models, if we had a number installed in a subdivision, what if everybody had one of these, and what would be the impact on asset management? So again, that was pretty useful information. And the other thing, I think Martin's still working with the Environment Network. How can you continue this work with the Environment Network for public education on sump pumps and maintaining the sump pumps? I've always said this many times, I could write a coffee table book on sump pumps. I've heard every story on sump pumps. And I think we saw every innovative type of sump pump in town, so there is definitely more work to be done on an education basis for homeowners, because it is really their lifeline. And as we know, when it's going to be coming, the melt is coming, the pumps are going to start awakening here in town. Okay, so we did 2 surveys. Happy to report the very successful, actually. This was the results for the first survey. In the final report, we'll be collecting all the results from the survey, but overwhelmingly, I would say, if not 75%, sometimes 100% support of the homeowners with the technology and what came out of the study. Again, there was the opportunity for some II inflow analysis for one of the subdivisions in town here. We used some of the data to help the engineering department. And RainGrid actually is very instrumental with their technology. They work with George Brown College, so they actually gave them an opportunity as a living lab here in Collingwood, as Martin would refer to it, to upgrade their controllers and make it more efficient for future use. Okay, so tonight it's a special night for us because we have been asked by even FCM that the town would consider putting in an application for the October Sustainable Communities Conference. It's in St. John's, Newfoundland. As an in-kind and sincere gesture of thanks, we will prepare the application on behalf of the town. It's your application. If successful, the town would have to dedicate somebody from council to go to St. John's, Newfoundland in October. But I just wanted to, that's why I'm here tonight, is to get the green light to do that. I also want to report, after this study, we're actually working with our partners on really innovative projects now. We have one underway in Peterborough starting up. I'm in discussion with the City of Vancouver, and City of Stratford has actually invited us to come down and talk to us. So it really started here. Thank you, everybody. It's kind of a world of engineering I envisioned one day would come, and I wish I was much younger, but with the next generation in waiting, I've really learned a lot. I've partnered with the companies, and I think it's a great success story for Collingwood. So thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Mark. It's a very exciting initiative, and we're very proud to have you here. Are there any questions or comments from the committee? Councillor Jeffrey.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering if, probably to the clerk as well, if we can do a motion to recommend that council would support the submission of that excellent award submission.
Yes. And actually, we do actually have one prepared. That the Development and Operations Services Standing Committee recommend to council to provide a letter of endorsement for the FCM Awards application as requested. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Jeffrey, Mayor Saunderson, all in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck. And our second deputation tonight is from the Georgian Triangle Development Institute, Robert Voigt and Tava Oplet. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Rob and I just wanted to basically introduce or maybe reintroduce the GTDI to you. I've been the vice president for my second term now, and Rob's our newly elected president. And we have done a lot of work with sort of looking at our vision, what our purpose will be to help support the communities, the development, to help develop all kinds of homes for all kinds of lifestyles, not just attainable or not just high-end, but everything in between, because the community needs all kinds of different housing for all kinds of different people. So again, I'm the vice president. How do I click?
Why don't we do this as a team?
Okay.
There we go.
So our theme, our vision is leadership, collaboration, and community building. The GTDI was incorporated in 1992. We're a nonprofit organization representing the development industry in the South Georgian Bay region. The members include builders, contractors, suppliers, planners, engineers, real estate firms, developers. We have lawyer, insurance members, so people from all walks of life in our community to help support and be creative and get a lot of different ideas coming together. So the town of Collingwood, figuratively and geographically, is right in the center of it all. So you're our first deputation, but we will go to the other municipalities as well. Our mission is to ensure that the private sector development industry remains strong, healthy, and viable economic sector within the southern Georgian Bay region. We just basically want to make sure that we are mutually beneficial to each other and have outcomes in our regional development that suit all lifestyles. Our principles, activities that support the private sector as a driving force in development, our highest ethical standards, community planning in support of our community aspirations, and we're a forum for issues affecting the development sector. We're open and honest and creative, and that's why we are here. What we do, we hold a lot of workshops for our memberships, our members and guests, workshops and connections with associated communities of interest. We just held one recently about attainable housing, and really we were stuck on the word attainable. We really don't want to use that word attainable because it paints a certain type of picture. What we want to come up with is a different theme or a different word to show, again, all different lifestyles. People are at different stages. Some people are minimalists. They don't want big houses. They want to travel. So we have to be able to provide all different kinds of accommodations in our area. We also do tours and promotions of innovation in the industry, look to deal with local development and to learn from each other. We tour a lot of the local developments. We did a tour last year, just again to see what everyone else is doing, how they're doing it, what's the most efficient way, so that we can all learn from each other and collaborate. We are here to support strategic initiatives across the region. And we also have gatherings and networking events for our members, again, just to learn and share information and ideas. And I'll turn that over to Rob now, our president.
Thank you. So yeah, I was able to step into this role on January 16th. It's been a very hectic number of weeks. It's an honor to be involved in this organization at this level now, and wanted to make sure that we kind of reached out to our partner municipalities as soon as I kind of got my feet on the ground. What we'd really like to highlight is that we have a shared perspective of the importance of community building. The communities that we work in, those that we live in, and those that we call home are undeniably connected to and influenced by the development industry. It's not something that is, sidelined or in addition to all the other industries. In fact, they are all very much dependent on what we do. And why do I say that? If it affects you and your businesses, it affects us and our membership. And what does that look like? So the development industry is directly connected to community building. The same charge essentially that members of council have, just from a different perspective. So of course, there's the employment component of we provide jobs. That's a pretty easy connection, I think, for people to understand. There's also the overall economic development. I was just in discussions with folks at Simcoe County that are updating their economic development plan, as you know, and it had a wonderful sort of hour-long conversation as it was part of their interview process. And I was reminding them that you can have many goals for increase in number of jobs, new businesses coming in, growth of all that. Well, unless all that growth somehow happens in the buildings you have and supported by the infrastructure you have now, it won't happen. New businesses mean new buildings, means new employees, new housing, new infrastructure to support that. And we represent the people that help design it, help build it, help maintain it. Even municipal projects are often designed and built by our members. We're all connected in this. And so that is that direct link to economic development. We build workforce housing. Overall growth, of course, as I just said, is linked to all of this. infrastructure and resiliency. The kinds of innovation that we see in this region, as the previous deputation, are the kinds of things that we want to make sure that we're promoting as much as possible. Local investment. We have many challenges that we're dealing with in this region right now, related to certain kinds of growth and how difficult it is to have that be done in a measured and successful way. But I would argue that's a really great problem to have, because not that long ago in this town and those others within our catchment area weren't as fortunate. There were times when there wasn't that desire for people to reinvest in their homes that are here, plus those wanting to come in and invest either with new homes or from the development industry. So we have a great challenge there, but it's a wonderful opportunity. Of course, aging in place, being able to provide housing that addresses people's full life courses, to address their needs and desires as they move through their life course. That's all interrelated and what we do. Community health and recreation. The trails and things that we appreciate here are designed and built by our members. Attainable housing, of course, that's highest, I think, on everyone's mind right now. And then overall placemaking, those places that we love to go to, that we experience, are in some form touched by the development industry. So for 2020, we have the beginning of a new decade. Myself and some new board members coming on, we thought we'd want to make sure that we have a reset. And what are the things that we want to focus on this year particularly? It's attainable housing, collaboration, community building initiatives, streamlining development review processes, because it's linked to all of these, and of course sustainability. So now's the time for bold leadership and collaboration and well thought out actions and solutions. And so one of the first things we're doing is we're making deputations to all our partner municipalities. We'll also be doing that same outreach to the county councils with Gray and Simcoe. As you are probably aware of, we've got an official plan update in Meaford that's starting, and we're already in discussions with them. There's economic development work being done in town of Blue Mountains. We're working with them on that. You've just started your official plan update. In fact, Tava mentioned the session we just held for our members, looking specifically at the attainable housing crisis here in this community, and we're going to be coming forward with some very pragmatic recommendations for you to be able to move forward on that. We've got the closing of the official plan update that's going on in Wasaga Beach, and we're involved in that now. And Clearview Township has got their official plan update going on as well, and we're involved in that. And as I mentioned, the economic development strategy for Simcoe County. So we're doing our best to make sure that we're collaborating and getting in front of these big challenges before us, because none of these things will be dealt with just with kind of picking away at the edges. And so with that in mind, we look forward to working together with council and our various community stakeholders moving forward. And we thank you for the time today and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the committee? Mayor Salterson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Rob, and thank you for the presentation today. And we have as well our Economic Development Action Plan in play. So I would certainly welcome the opportunity to sit down with Martin and our team to get your input on that as well.
We'd be more than happy to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving along to staff reports. And our first staff report tonight is P 2020-08, the Pilkington Battery Storage Facility. And I will turn that over to Lindsay, who will be speaking on this staff report tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Planning Services has received a development proposal for a minor expansion to the Pilkington Glass facility to install a battery storage energy solution. The development will essentially enable Pilkington to draw energy from the grid during off-peak times and store it in industrial batteries on site for future use. which will ultimately create a more efficient and cost-effective energy supply for the facility. Next slide, please. So the proposed battery storage facility, or the proposed development, is located at the southeast corner of the Pilkington site. Next slide, please. The minor expansion involves the placement of 2 storage containers, both of which are approximately 40 square meters in size, and the associated electrical equipment with that. The development is proposed to be fenced, and landscaping is currently being contemplated, and we're anticipating additional details on that. The location, or the proposed location for the battery storage facility, is also located within an area regulated by Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and it is within an area known as a flooding hazard. So the applicant is working with NVCA on a to submit a flood study and ensure that the elevation that the battery storage facility is constructed to is acceptable to them. Next slide, please. So this just shows you a cross section of what is being proposed in the facility. And I apologize, but the image in the lower right corner of that slide does illustrate what the proposed fencing would look like for the energy compound. Next slide, please. And then this just gives you an idea from various distances from 6th line to where the development is proposed. So you can see there's already landscaping in place around the facility, and as I'm sure you're aware, Pilkington has invested quite a bit in the outdoor aesthetic of the facility. So we do anticipate additional landscaping around the fencing, but it is well screened already where they're proposing to construct that. So the Pilkington site was acquired and developed in around the 1960s. So as such, it was constructed prior to being subject to the town's site plan control process. So there are no existing site plan control agreements or approved drawings available for the site. Given the minor nature of this proposed expansion, Planning Services believes that it would be unnecessarily expensive and lengthy to have Pilkington proceed with a full site plan control application at this time. Hence, we are bringing forward a recommendation with some conditions for Council's consideration and Committee's consideration this evening. The development proposal was circulated to town departments and external agencies. Some of the key issues identified did pertain to landscaping and screening. As I've already alluded, we are expecting additional details pertaining to landscaping and the fencing, and securities would be received for those to ensure the work is completed. I also mentioned Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority has identified the proposed location within a flooding hazard, and the applicant is in the process of submitting a flood study to NVCA. And those matters will need to be resolved to the satisfaction of the director and NVCA prior to any site plan approval being issued. And then the last issue or matter that was raised was the requirement for an MTO permit. Subsequent to the staff report being published on the agenda, the MTO has issued their permit for this proposed development, so that has been satisfied. And just in terms of timing, it is essential for Pilkington. They really need this. They've expressed that they really need this infrastructure in place prior to the summer, and they're hoping to break ground as soon as possible. Hence, the staff report is coming forward with a recommendation for Council's approval with some conditions prior to all of the matters being fully addressed, but they will be fully addressed prior to the director considering any site plan approval should Council approve this matter.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from anyone in the gallery? Seeing none, I will read the recommendation then. That staff report P 2020-08, recommending Council approve the processing of the proposed Pilkington battery storage facility as a minor adjustment to a site plan control agreement, and that Council approve the site plan development drawings for the proposed Pilkington battery storage facility at 10,001 Highway 26, subject to the following conditions. Receipt of the following materials to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Building Services. Those would be drawings showing fencing and screening landscaping, securities to address any needed fencing and landscaping. Other conditions, a receipt of clearance for the development proposal from the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority, and receipt of any revised drawings required to resolve outstanding issues, including the NVCA clearance, to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning and Building Services. And further, that staff report P 2020-08 be considered at the council meeting of March 16th, 2020. Be approved. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mayor Saunderson. Deputy Mayor Hull. Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. As we are aware, Pilkington has a long history in Collingwood, over 50 years. They had their 50th anniversary, I think, last year or the year before. They are one of our major employers, and 2007 were purchased by Nippon Sheet Glass, which I had the pleasure of visiting the headquarters when I was in Tokyo during the Kitano visit in November. And they're certainly extremely proud of this operation. It is their only operation in Canada. And I would very much in support of this project moving forward. I had the opportunity to meet with Director Farr and some of the senior staff from Pilkington. And the rationale behind the project is behind the meter energy storage is done to offset the growing costs of the global adjustment, and that hitting peaks and capturing maximum value will result in major savings for the Pilkington facility, which will help our facility move forward in their business operations, and they are a large employer. The project's been fully reviewed and approved by EPCOR and Hydro One for interconnection, and I think this is a great opportunity for a green initiative in our community. It's a 5 megawatt battery. They will be running off the battery and not drawing from the grid during peak hours. And it's quite a quick turnaround for the charging, and I see this as a great opportunity for a groundbreaking project in our area, a green initiative that will strengthen the return for a major employer in business. So I cannot stress my support for this enough.
Thank you, Mayor Saunderson. Any other comments? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also was excited to see, because a lot of the questions I received from the Climate Action Group was how would we be able to influence or help the private sector, our corporate sector, make decisions in our greening, are wanting to become a greener community, and this is a great example about how we can do it. So even though it may be cost effective for them, there's going to be some capacity benefits for the other partners in our community. So I think staff did a great job with it, and I'm very pleased to support it. The only other thing, I'm going to ask this a couple of times tonight, in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, I'm wondering if these things couldn't address what goals we are actually targeting to assist with in that spectrum. I'm also going to ask it in some other projects, but specifically here, if we could pick which Sustainable Development Goal from UN that we're addressing. I know our specific project is to Sustainable Goal number 11, but I think there's other goals that we can be targeting with this project as well. And that would just be a request through staff to find a way to make sure we're noting that.
Thank you. This is something that we can have asked to the staff report for next week.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's a great suggestion, and perhaps what we can do is the reports that come forward before committee and council on a going forward basis can identify which of the SDG goals that we're contributing towards. So I think it's a great suggestion, and we'll try and incorporate that those criteria in our staff report on a going forward basis where applicable, not dissimilar to the work we do regarding our strategy.
Good, thank you. Any other comments? Thank you. Well, for all the reasons already stated so eloquently, I am also very much in support of this staff report. So I will call a vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Next item, PW 2020-06, drainage easement at 39 Glen Rogers Road. That council received staff report, sorry, my apologies. Who will be speaking? Is it Director Slama? Thank you. If I could
Yes,
ask you to
thank you,
speak to
Madam
that.
Chair. So the staff report that is before you this evening is related to a easement agreement for some drainage infrastructure that is located on private property at 39 Glen Rogers Road. This infrastructure benefits upstream properties as well as the property on which it is located. The infrastructure has been in place for some time, so this is a little bit of housekeeping. Thank you. If you can flip the slides. Through discussions with the property owner in consultation with our town solicitor, staff are recommending the following access easement to complete for maintenance purposes, and that this would be added to the property through registration of the easement on the title. The wording for the agreement has been vetted through legal counsel for both parties. And there will be no exchange of money for rights of access in this case, and the town's legal fees will be paid through the Public Works legal budget. If you can move to the next, this is just to locate it for you within the town. Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions from the gallery? Seeing none, then I will read the motion and I will ask the committee to comment. That council receives staff report PW 2020-06, drainage easement 39 Glen Rogers Road, and that staff be authorized to finalize the easement agreement and register the R plan, and that council authorize the execution of the easement agreement on said property. May I have a mover and a seconder? Deputy Mayor Hall, Councillor Jeffrey. Comments and questions from the committee? Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess one question when I was reading through that we're doing the easement at this point to do maintenance, but I think I read somewhere that this drainage is now under the water table. Does that mean that we need to be going in and fixing that, but we needed the easement first, or I just wanted to be clear on that.
Director Slama.
Through the chair to Councillor Jeffrey. So the outlet is somewhat submerged with the high lake levels. So sometimes we just need access to make sure it's clear and do our best to help drainage as much as possible.
Carry on. Oh, okay,
That's it. Yeah.
great. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. I was just wondering if we have any idea of how many storm drainage systems the town has installed like this without easements.
Director Slama.
Through the chair to Councillor Hamlin. That is a good question. I would need to consult with Manager Cole just to get an idea of how many more there might be. I can report back though.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, then I will call the vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Next staff report, PW 2020-08, 2019 Annual Wastewater Compliance Report. And I will turn that over to Director Sloma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a summary of the wastewater treatment plant data, next slide please Chris, thank you. A summary of the wastewater treatment plant data is required to be submitted to the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks annually before March 31st. This report serves as Collingwood's annual summary. The report has been compiled in accordance with our current environmental compliance approval, which is dated January 2019. A new ECA was issued when we received ministry approval for the installation of our replacement UV equipment in 2019. The report covers the year of 2019, and it includes some general operational information so the public can learn about the treatment process and easily see how the ministry set objectives are being met through our operations. Looking at the flow received at the wastewater treatment plant, currently, for 2019, the average flow was at approximately 66% of our rated capacity. The average daily flow is the average over the whole year, Peak flow is the maximum flow in one day at the wastewater treatment plant, and peak flow for 2019 represented approximately 55% of the rated peak capacity. So that just tells us that we're operating well within our required capacity, and we're not looking at an expansion of the wastewater treatment plant at this time. The treatment plant has compliance and objective limits that are set by the ministry. Compliance limits must be met, and objective limits are limits that operations strive to achieve. The compliance limits were achieved for all of our effluent parameters in 2019. The objective limits were met for all parameters except for 1 month where the average E. coli was greater than 100 but less than 200. So those are positive results for our plant. We wanted to provide just a few highlights of work that was done in 2019. So the report and this slide lists some of the major work, some of the repair work, and some of the preventative maintenance work that was completed at the plant in 2019. There were also 3 complaints received at the wastewater treatment plant related to odor. With each complaint, staff investigate operations at the plant to identify and correct the source. There are times when odor will escape from the wastewater treatment plant, and an example would be when we need to transfer sludge from the digesters to the trucks that move it away. So these operations are completed when necessary, and precautions are taken as best possible to mitigate odors escaping. In 2019, the plant went through an inspection, a ministry inspection. Typically, the ministry will inspect the wastewater treatment plants once every 3 years. That's different than what we see on the water side, where it is inspected annually. So the inspector looked at data from 2016 to 2018. Because the inspection was completed in 2019, not all the information was available. There were 2 non-compliances found during the inspection, but there were no actions required to be completed following the inspector's notes. So the first was that we had a change of a requirement on our raw sewage sampling. Previously, we completed it, we were required to complete it quarterly, and there was a change for this to be completed monthly. And the inspector noted that we had missed the 2 January and February. He stated no action was required because we were able to demonstrate that we had recognized that error and started the monthly testing and sampling in March. The second was related to a new ECA requirement for quarterly sampling of leachate that is produced at the County of Simcoe landfill site on the 10th line in Collingwood. Some of the sampling was missed, again in this case, and the inspector cited no action was required as the town had demonstrated a sampling program had been initiated to complete these additional requirements. And lastly, I was just going to mention that our current manager, Glenn Price, will be retiring next Monday, 1 week today. And we have selected Glenn's replacement, and it is Jennifer Adams. She'll be the new supervisor at the wastewater treatment plant. Jen was working at the plant as a lab technician and has been working at the Collingwood facility for almost 20 years, I believe, starting out as an operator, then moving to the lab technician. So she's working with Glenn in these final days to learn what she can before he drives off into the sunset. Glenn was hoping to make it here this evening, but he had an emergency at home, so he was unable to attend.
Thank you very much. Are there any comments or questions from anyone in the gallery? Okay, seeing none, then I will read the motion. That council receive staff report PW 2020-08 and endorse the 2019 annual wastewater compliance report. May I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Hamlin, Mayor Saunderson. And comments from the committee? Councillor Jeffrey.
Just as consolation to our director, I just returned from St. Hyacinthe, if you're an Anglophone, Saint Hyacinthe, if you're Francophone. They have the #1 chocolate producer in the world, Barry Callebaut, Canada, and they get odor complaints about the chocolate. I don't get it, but it doesn't matter what you produce, you get odor complaints. So no, I think it's a great report and proud to pass it. And if Jennifer loves her job half as much as Glenn did, we're in great hands.
Great, thank you, Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And I guess, Peggy, that Glenn will be driving off into the sunset in his custom car. I've seen
Yes,
the
literally.
photo album, and you gotta cut out about 10 minutes of your day to see that. It's quite something. But I did have a few questions. First, congratulations to you and your staff on this excellent report. And good luck to Glenn in his retirement and to our new head as he takes on this responsibilities. And I just wondered, it appears that our daily average flow and our peak flow have declined since 2016 generally, and I was wondering if you have an explanation for that.
Through the chair to Mayor Saunderson. So part of the explanation would be it was a drier year last year. That definitely speaks to the lower peak flow. And sometimes it's the way we see the snow melt in the change in the spring. So it was happened over a longer period of time, and didn't see one influx of a big melt at the wastewater treatment plant.
And if I could follow up, and I know it also we didn't have any bypass events, and that would be related as well to the drier year.
Yes, that's correct.
And one last question. I know in the last term we replaced, or maybe it was last year, some of the UV lamps. Has that increased the efficiency of the system at all?
Through the chair, yes, it has with respect to energy consumption. We're using 25% less energy at the wastewater treatment plant. And that is also helping us with our current capital project of the generator replacement. We're in the process of replacing our generator, which is very critical at the wastewater treatment plant, and we will be installing a smaller generator.
And if I may, Madam Chair, that goes, I think, to Councillor Jeffrey's comment about achieving energy efficiencies and greening of our system. So I'm wondering if there's a way, as we move forward, that can be reflected in our reports, because I think that 25% is a significant cutback. So that's a very noteworthy win. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. Okay, so if there are no further comments, I'll call a vote. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Okay, item 7, reports or minutes from other committees and boards. The Collingwood Heritage Committee, all outstanding Collingwood Heritage Committee minutes, which normally would be received at this standing committee, were approved at the special council meeting on March 4th. So that moves us on to the consent agenda. And I will read the motion that the consent agenda, having been given due consideration by the standing committee, be received. And we have items 8.1 through to 8.7. And can I have a motion to accept the consent agenda? Councillor Hamlin, Mayor Saunderson, and all in favor of accepting the consent agenda? That is carried unanimously. Are there any items to be pulled? Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, if I could pull 8.2, please.
8.2, okay. Any other items? Okay, take it away, Mayor Saunderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a letter to Council from the ACO talking about the composition of the Heritage Advisory Committee. And I know we had a meeting some time ago about this, and I think the upshot of that meeting was that we are planning to convene a meeting with the Heritage Committee and with the BIA representatives to talk about sort of the interplay between these committees and how best to make sure that there's representation on both of those committees, so that there's good cross-pollination. And I don't know if Director Skinner would like to comment on that, but there's a way forward, I hope, on this in terms of making sure that there's adequate representation on both of these committees.
Thank you, Director Skinner.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, we had noted committee representation and the importance of heritage going forward in the draft strategic plan that went out for consultation with the public. However, I think that there's also a component related to Clerk Almus's work with the composition of committees as well. So I don't have a lot to add right at this time, other than recognizing it as a point that's been raised here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Deputy Mayor Hall.
I was going to put forward a motion actually to be sent up to council for consideration, but would you like that now or under other business?
We'll take that now.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. It does relate to the matter that's been pulled under 8.2. Whereas the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, Collingwood, known as the ACO, has asked that council review the voting members' role on the Heritage Committee, be it resolved that the standing committee recommend council request that in the context of good governance, staff review specific agency organization representation on all town boards and committees, including the general roles expected of any committee member.
Okay, thank you. Would we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hamlin. Would there be any discussion? Councillor Jeffrey.
Sorry. So I think just to speak specifically to the request that was on the consent agenda, which will be caught in the whole of this, I think we'd be taking a step backward if we're not sure we don't have all the partners who are impacted by the decisions we're making. Because if one comes to us, the first question we'll ask is, has the other weighed in? So it just takes longer to get things done. So I think the right people. So I guess in that essence, what Deputy Mayor Hall is asking, I think we need to make sure the right people are at the table at the same time so that we get all the information we need at once.
Thank you. Yes, and the clerk has advised me that we will do that. Mayor Saunderson.
Yes, I guess the only thing I would add is in the particular context of this letter, I think there's quite a bit of interplay when we look at our downtown core and our heritage district between the BIA and the heritage district, and I think we need to make sure that we've got all the appropriate players at the table so that we are having fulsome discussions so that when recommendations come to council, we understand that everybody's had all viewpoints have been considered, and so I think that's one aspect of this, and I appreciate that the Deputy Mayor's motion is broader than that, but I think the intent is the same, to make sure that all our committees have the cross-pollination and the representation of the public at large. So when these reports and minutes come to council, we can be sure that everybody's weighed in who has an interest in the outcome.
Thank you. We'll ask a question then of Mayor Saunderson. I do agree that it would be very useful to have a meeting between the BIA, the ACO, and the Heritage Committee. And I'm wondering, has the date been set for that?
No, I think I would look through you to the clerk and the executive director. I think what we're trying to do is just have a broader discussion so that when we go forward with our report on these committees, that we've made sure that everyone's been involved in those discussions. So when the recommendations come from staff, we've canvassed everybody who has an interest in it.
Okay, thank you. Do we have to the clerk? Do we have a time frame identified for this?
Certainly through the chair to the committee. I think this is something that staff have been already looking at, so I think we could be pretty expeditious in bringing this forward. So I would think within the next month or two at the latest.
Very good. Okay, then I think before I call the vote, I will just turn this over to the gallery if there are any questions or observations based on this matter on the consent agenda or any others. Come forward. Ms. Skelton.
Hopefully I can do this. I usually wing it, but I had some pretty pertinent points and I had a challenge today. My printer didn't wish to print, so I brought the laptop. I am currently the chair of Downtown Collingwood, which is the BIA, and we wish to have some input on the ACO letter, or a response to the ACO letter for council to consider, or standing committee and council to consider. The Heritage Committee is a Town of Collingwood volunteer committee which reviews and makes recommendations to the D&O Standing Committee, and it's a volunteer board appointed by council. This committee has rotating terms. The BIA Board of Management is elected by the membership, which is over 400, for a term concurrent with the Municipal Council. One of our responsibilities on the board is a representation on the Heritage Committee currently. The BIA and the Heritage Committee share similar boundary lines. They're not absolutely exact, but they are very close. The BIA have had full member status at the Heritage Committee since its formation. The board member represents both the overall BIA objectives and may champion individual members' application at Heritage. Oops, wrong thing to punch. It is also the responsibility to report back to the BIA Board of Management regarding the direction and policy recommendations of the Heritage Committee. I'm going to knock this up and probably lose it in a second. Let's see. All BIA members are located within the similar boundaries as the town's Heritage District. Recommendations that Heritage make have a direct impact on our members. The BIA's role on Heritage is to be a full member who brings the concerns of the BIA to Heritage and work to find common solutions. True, we do not always agree, but it is extremely important that we share our concerns with an equal voice. There have been many initiatives, such as recently the proposed increase to to 20% of the Heritage Tax Program rebate. As requested by Heritage, we reviewed and supported the initiative at our board table, and then we spoke in support when the presentation came forward to Standing Committee. The Collingwood branch of the ACO has a mandate to advocate against the destruction of significant historical buildings. Many of our BIA property owners have invested significantly in their buildings. However, not all our BIA buildings are significant historical buildings. The BIA have invested significantly over time in cooperation with the town in the public spaces, beginning over 40 years ago with the original reconstruction of the main street, and most recently in 2010 when we partnered with the town, the province, and the federal government in the over $7 million update to our downtown. We are currently halfway through repaying our BIA debenture of just over $1 million. in this $7 million project. Our downtown has developed for over 160 years to become a very vibrant downtown. Many heritage buildings still exist, but we are not a pure 1858 Main Street, nor should the expectation be that new builds replicate what the site looked like when it was originally built. Through the years, different circumstances have led to rebuilding. One example is very recently Sporting Life will be coming forward, or the owner of the Sporting Life property will be coming forward. They don't always rebuild in the 1858 design plan. We need to ensure that new buildings and renovations are respectful of the heritage guidelines and not necessarily a throwback to the 1900s. As for the concern expressed in the letter that the BIA has in the last couple of years had the occasion to chair the Heritage Committee meeting. This was done as the committee barely made quorum and neither the chair nor vice chair were present, and none of the other present committee members were willing to chair the meeting. Following Vice Chair Leaning's presentation to the last standing committee, it was discussed at our board level, and the decision was made that the BIA has committed to not chairing any future heritage meetings. That decision was shared with the heritage meeting at the February meeting, their February meeting. If no other members are willing to step forward to chair the meeting, it would have to be rescheduled. The BIA's representative is currently working on a subcommittee of heritage to review and organize the Next Doors Open event. And in the past, the BIA have managed this event themselves, and we brought our expertise to the discussion. In closing, it's true that we don't always agree, but both committees have the best interests of the downtown at heart. It is important that the BIA continue to represent the building, the business owners with the strength of a vote. Thank you.
Thank you.
I can never get it to print. I'll send you a copy.
Thank you very much, Ms. Skelton. Any comments from the committee?
Thank you.
Okay. Well, you can certainly see how the review of committee structure and organization is due. I will then call a vote to refer the the deputy mayor's motion. We don't actually have the motion. Could you kindly read the motion? Thank you.
So whereas the Architectural Conservancy of Ontario, Collingwood, known as the ACO, has asked the council review the voting members' role on the Heritage Committee, be it resolved that the Standing Committee recommend council request that in the context of good governance, staff review specific agency or organization representation on all town boards and committees, including the general rules expected of any committee member.
Great, thank you. And that has been moved and seconded by Councillor Hamlin, Mayor Saunderson. So I will call the vote. All in favor? That is carried unanimously. Okay, moving on then to item 9, departmental updates. The Economic Development Action Plan, overview and update. Director Ridlow, come on down.
Good evening, Chair, Council, members of staff that are here. It gives me great pleasure to take you through an overview of the draft Economic Development Action Plan. So what's important is this is not the full plan, we're working on that, but we want to make sure that we could share with you the general direction that we're taking. Why do we need a plan in the first place? Well, first of all, we did one back in 2015, approved one, so it begs the question, well, are we going to do another one? And that's a nice reason why, but the real reasons are to help established businesses grow, to attract investors as well as entrepreneurs, to convert solopreneurs into larger, higher growth local success stories, to ensure the right workforce exists for our new wave of businesses coming to and growing in Collingwood, and perhaps most importantly for Council, to help diversify the tax base so the municipality is not overly dependent on residential taxes. Now the good news is we have momentum. Over the last 5 years, there's been a 22% growth in registered companies, a 15% growth in solopreneurs, and we have a strong base of small businesses. In fact, 75% of our businesses employ 1 to 9 people. Developing the next plan, we've taken a very methodical approach to it. And we've really started off by trying to gather a bunch of data. We've also assembled the Mayor's Advisory Team on Economic Development. The picture here is of the group that met in November to actually provide us with some really good background information and most importantly some ideas as well. So 12 members from the community, business leaders, some that have been long-time members here, some that are moving their companies here. So it was a great group that gathered for 2 days. And they've given us a lot of information to, if you will, use as a foundation. We've stepped through the various stages of this plan, from awareness to selection of the advisory team, engagement of the public, and we're now entering the validation stage. Importantly, the Economic Development Action Plan is not a standalone document. Quite the opposite. It is a plug-in, if you will, into the broader community-based strategic plan. There's a pillar that specifically references to growth and prosperity, and the Economic Development Plan is highlighted in there as one of several key goals within that. Over the course of the last 5 years, we've seen some great success from the original Economic Development Plan. It was a great foundational plan. We created and operationalized the Business Development Center. Believe it or not, 5 years ago, there wasn't a Business Development Center here. Over the last 5 years, we've done more than 6,000 free consultations, seen traffic increase by 93%, booked $6 million in federal growth loans to companies, provided close to $500,000 in provincial small company grants. And overall, by all measures, the town's investment in supporting the Business Development Center, and in particular Tim Newton and the Small Business Enterprise Center, has proven extremely successful. But we've also been recognized as a top place for entrepreneurship in Canada. Not once, but more than 3 times, each time making it to the top 10, in some cases being the top in Ontario, 1 year in fact making it to the top in Canada. We've been recognized as top 10 best place to live by Outdoor Life in Eastern Canada, a tribute to our great lifestyle. We're among the top broadband internet-connected communities in Ontario. We grew the profile of Collingwood lifestyle on social media to one of the best in Ontario, with over 25,000 followers across our social media channels, one of the highest per capita reach of any mid-sized municipality in Ontario. And last but not least, we've created the Live More Now job portal and Tech Hub North cluster of companies that's not only raised the awareness of the tech high-value jobs that are here in Collingwood, but created a buzz about the leading-edge companies here in Collingwood. And we've heard about one of those companies today already. We want to take it to the next level. With its natural beauty and promise of work-life balance, Collingwood is growing quickly. We want to encourage growth. We want to encourage its growth as a thriving entrepreneurial hub for innovative products, services, and sustainable design, especially in key areas like water, environment, and health sciences innovation. We'll champion collaboration between government, business, and academic institutions, making it easy for new and existing businesses to find the support they need to grow here in Collingwood, and to attract the young, skilled workforce that will support expanding knowledge economy businesses. That's where we want to go. In the 4-page brochure that you have in front of you that was included in the agenda, we've identified some of the key goals and objectives. In fact, we've identified 3 key goals. The first one, make Collingwood a hub for sustainability innovation. The second one, promote Collingwood as a great place to live and work. And the last one is to ensure Collingwood is investment ready. If we really simplify what these mean, making Collingwood a hub for sustainability innovation is all about attracting companies here and helping our existing companies grow. Promoting Collingwood as a great place to live and work is about our workforce and developing the kind of talent and the workforce that we need to support the companies coming here. And ensure Collingwood is investment ready is all about the customer service that we as a town provide back to those companies starting and growing here. As you open up the 4-pager, we've tried to categorize the key parts of the plan into where are we going, How will we get there? And when will we know we have arrived? Under the when will we know we've arrived column, those are potential headlines. And we thought it'd be interesting to put those forward just as suggestions, ideas, to help people understand what kind of stuff are we actually going after. So as we take a look at the plan, we've got 3 goals, there are 8 action items, and then we've identified 5 priority high return projects. You'll see those listed on the back page of the 4-pager. And they include profiling available land and space, which is really about databasing the industrial space that we still have available. So for example, we've actually done a lot of this work. There are 33 lots that currently are underutilized or vacant. But more importantly, converting that into a promotional tool that can help investors find their land easier and identify the places that are most relevant to them. And we've done this by actually clustering the business areas, the industrial zoned areas, into 8 business parks. So that's part of the project that will be detailed on the profiling available land and space. Attainable accommodation, interestingly enough, we had an interesting presentation today, and I think that one needs a little explanation based on its importance. Business-friendly customer service is about us and how we work together, and there's some interesting areas that are being explored there, along with other members of the department heads team. The business accelerator you are familiar with, and we continue to move forward with that, with the hiring of the manager, which should be coming in the next few weeks. And last but not least, the Living Lab for Sustainable Innovation. And this in particular is a project that was inspired by the very presentation that we had earlier on today by Greenland. And the idea is to roll out the learnings of the Stormwater Pilot Project into more sustainability innovation projects, ones that are private-public partnerships, ones that help profile our local tech companies, ones that we continue profiling at www.collingwoodpilotproject.com. Last but not least, on the last page, you'll see some of the metrics. As we met with a number of the business leaders, one particular noted how important it is to make sure that we measure stuff that we want to get done. So we've identified 5 key areas of metrics: job opportunities, skilled workforce, business success, investments, and livability that we'll continue tracking, with the idea of reporting back to council annually to make sure you are aware of the progress we're making. And finally, how do we make sure we can complete the validation stage that we're in? We're proud to announce that we're going to be holding a drop-in public open house on March 26th from 3 to 6 p.m. here in Chamber. On April 26th, we hope to continue to keep your Engage Collingwood portal that we just opened up today open until April 6th, when it will be the last day to provide feedback. And last but not least, we hope to present to the Standing Committee on April 14 with a draft of the full plan for your review. With that, I'd like to pass it over to the Mayor for any final comments, as I know he's been integrated into this whole process.
With your permission, Madam Chair, thank you, Martin, for the excellent presentation and for all the hard work, and to all staff involved. It's interesting, when this discussion started and the initial meeting with the team of approximately 12 significant business leaders and business minds in the community of all ages, representing a broad spectrum of businesses in the community. When they sat down for their day and a half think tank session and presented to myself and staff after that, what really came back at us was almost our strategic plan, but it was done from the lens of the businesses, and what do the businesses need to have a sustainable, thriving, and fertile business market here in Collingwood. And it was a very interesting perspective for us to see, and I guess what's grown on me or been impressed on me as this process has unfolded is, again, the critical overarching nature of the term, or encompassing broad spectrum term, sustainability. And what we really are looking for in this is to grow our economic sustainability, and to do that we have to have a sustainable economy within our community. When we were ranked 22nd best place to live in Canada by Maclean's magazine, they found that 66% of our working residents work in Collingwood, and that's an incredible metric for a community our size. And as we grow with the growth pressures we are under, The challenge for us will be to make sure that we keep up with that metric and increase that by being able to offer attainable housing, affordable living in Collingwood, so that we can attract a broad spectrum of workers, that we create jobs that are sustainable and viable, and that we can cover a broad range of workforce from entry level to senior levels. And so this plan is really designed to create a sustainable community from the economic perspective, from the fiscal perspective, and I think that will leak into every other aspect of our community, of all of the 5 pillars that we've identified in our strategic plan that's now undergoing a refresh. So this is a critical piece of the puzzle, I think, moving forward for us, and this will be our roadmap for going out to sell Collingwood, to target businesses, to target specific sectors and show them why their business would work here in Collingwood and why they should set up, while at the same time making sure that our existing employers and businesses are thriving and have an opportunity to grow with the community. So this is a very important process as I see it, and I look forward to moving forward and getting it back before council in April. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you both of you. And it's great to see that we have some near deadlines on some of this exciting progress. Before I take your question, Councillor Hamlin, I'll just turn it over to the gallery. Is there any questions from any members of the gallery? Okay, seeing none. Then are there any questions from the committee? Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I really just wanted to say thank you very much to Mr. Ridlow and the committee of business people in our community who have worked so hard to come up with these great ideas. And I love, everything that's in here. I love how we're going to be measuring progress on these 5 different items of job opportunities, skilled workforce, business success, investments, livability. Because I think these are the things people look at when they're trying to decide where to set up a business. And also for the younger people who would love to move here and embrace our community as we do, when they see what a success we are in black and white, it will be a driver, I am sure. So thank you very much. Look forward to reading the full report.
Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And so again, just the Sustainable Development Goal references in the final one would be terrific. And I'm very encouraged to see the tie-in with the attainable accommodation, because I don't think it matters whether you're a professional or whatever business you're in of working in Collingwood. If we don't address the housing, it's going to be pretty difficult to put the workforce in place going forward. So happy to see that.
Good point. Any other questions or? Okay. Thank you very much, Director Ridlow. Okay. And finally, item 10, we're on to public delegations. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to address the standing committee on any standing committee related matter? You would have 5 minutes each. Okay, then seeing none, is there any other business? Councillor Hamlin.
Yes, Madam Chair, I just have a question for staff. My question is based on the fact I'm continuing to receive inquiries from our residents concerning the status of our bringing forward policies to better control infill housing development in Collingwood. And I was wondering if our staff could comment on the status of their work in this regard.
Thank you. Through you to Ms. Ayers.
Through you, Madam Chair, to Councillor Hamlin. Planning Services is currently reviewing a number of mature neighborhood type studies that have been undertaken in a variety of municipalities in the province. And we hope to have a staff report brought forward for the committee and council's consideration soon. I believe Director Farr was targeting early in the second quarter to have a staff report before you.
Thank you so much.
Very good, thank you. Anything else? Okay, so Councillor Jeffrey and Deputy Mayor Hull, I hope you're very pleased. It's 20 after 6, time to eat before the first game. So may I have a motion to adjourn? Councillor Jeffrey, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you very much.